Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing our deep dive into this Florida State program, heading into spring practice, fall camp, the 2024 season. Mike Norvell obviously going to the transfer portal and really getting this team right heading into 2024. We took a look at the offensive line, took a look at the defensive line. Now this week, we're taking a look at the offensive skill positions that have been dramatically overhauled in the transfer portal. I think you're excited for two things if you're a Florida State fan. One, you have a lot of young talent on this roster that is coming back in 2024. But more importantly, you went to the transfer portal and got a lot of experienced talent as well at the offensive skill positions. Want to talk about what this running back room looks like, what this wide receiver room is going to shake out like, and have a little conversation about what this offense is going to look like with DJU at the helm. Really excited to get into this. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys, and it truly has been a blast of a program to talk about, and the amount of support the Florida State fans have shown the boys really does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys more than you know. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to take us back to kind of going back to the 2023 film, talking about what I saw from this team in 2023. And the first thing that I absolutely love about what Coach Atkins and what Coach Norvell do with this offense is they identify their playmakers on this offense and they make a concerted effort to get them involved and get them the football. And I think that is one of the biggest flaws that you look across college football and where offenses really struggle is how to get their playmakers the footballs in ways that they can impact the game. I mean, Florida State does a phenomenal job of this, right? Whether it's Keon Coleman on the screen, whether it's Trey Benson on the screen, whether it's a guy like Johnny Wilson, giving him a chance to make a play with the football in the air, Jaheim Bell. I kind of saw the playmakers that Florida State wanted to get the football to: Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell, Trey Benson. And they did a very nice job finding creative ways and explosive ways to get those guys the football. And so I think the large question is now, who are going to be those playmakers that you're looking at to get the football to in 2024? Want to get into some of the guys that I'm keeping an eye on for this 2024 season. Want to start with the quarterback position and talk a little bit about what this offense is. What can we expect from this offense in 2024 under DJU? And I think the first talking point that I would like to go over is one, the quarterback that you're getting in DJU is a drastically different quarterback than you saw at Clemson a couple years ago, right? He goes to Oregon State. He kind of gets out of the limelight. You saw a more confident DJU at Oregon State than the other couple of years that you saw at Clemson. I think that is massive coming now to Tallahassee, where there is going to be a bright light on DJU at the quarterback position. I think two things that really excite you. One, DJU was the number 2 prospect in the country for a reason. He has a phenomenal arm. He has all the talent in the world. I'm really excited to see if Mike Norvell can kind of continue to get that talent out of him. And more importantly, you look at Mike Norvell and his track record with developing talented, high upside quarterbacks, look no further than Jordan Travis. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. So I think that the combination of DJU and the ceiling that he has, combined with what Mike Norvell has done developing quarterbacks, that excites you the most. And then taking a few things from what I saw on the film was DJU. This is a aspect that I think a lot of college football fans take for granted, and that is having a quarterback that can get the football to all blades of grass of the football field. This is something that we've talked about a lot, but you see a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of offenses kind of have to change their playbook a little bit, change what plays they're calling because a quarterback might not be able to make certain throws. I think what's most exciting about DJU is this is a guy that can make all the throws that you want him to make. And so I am very excited to see what this offense looks like. What kind of concepts do you think they introduce with a quarterback that has the arm talent and really just the raw talent that DJU has? Now, I think the next position group that we got to take a look at is that wide receiver room. Obviously, losing a lot of very talented pass catchers, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell. I am very much looking forward to hearing a lot of the analysts on ESPN in August say, well, this Florida State team is going to stink because they lost Keon Coleman, they lost Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell, and Jordan Travis. And yes, they lost a lot of production and a lot of really talented production from that 2023 year, but I have a list of wide receivers that goes about 10 people that I think 10 players, I should say, that really could step up for this Florida State offense in 2024. Want to talk about the two guys they landed in the transfer portal first, because when you talk about ceiling, I think you might be talking about him, but there's a couple guys, obviously Hakeem Williams with a massive ceiling, but Malik Benson and what he brings to the table and the flashes that you saw from him at Alabama, that stuff is special. He's a very big body. He runs a 10-4 100-meter dash. You don't often find the size-speed combination that Malik Benson brings to the table. And at the end of the day, that offense last year at Alabama, they had to make a lot of changes to it because they didn't have a quarterback that was necessarily that prototypical pocket passer. And so you look at Malik Benson, and this was a guy that you listened to Alabama beat writers in spring practice and fall camp. The buzz was Malik Benson was going to be this wide receiver one for Alabama. And I think when Jalen Milroe wins the job, you suddenly don't really see that prolific downfield passing attack that I think we were expecting. I think Malik Benson might be in for a massive year for Florida State. You have another guy in Jalen Brown who is running a 10-6 coming into his second-year transfer from LSU. There's a lot of speed on this Florida State team. And you have a quarterback with DJU that has a massive arm. Like, I think you're really excited to see what that deeper third, how do you attack the deeper third with all that speed? Now, talking about some guys that are returning for Florida State that I'm extremely excited about, and I'll kind of put my flag in the ground. Kentron Portier is a guy that I think you see the flashes from. And I think a lot of these guys, they don't have necessarily the proven production. I think that's a result of you had two NFL wide receivers in Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman. You had an NFL tight end in Jaheim Bell. Those guys were getting a lot of the work. And so I think the narrative is going to be Florida State doesn't have a lot of talent in this wide receiver room after losing Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. I think the narrative should be they have a lot of talent that might be unproven right now, might be able to really show out in 2024, given them more opportunities. They have Dorian Williamson, Ja'Kai Douglas, Destin Hill, and then you guys know, like Hakeem Williams, extremely excited about what he can bring to this offense for Florida State. We knew he was going to be raw as a true freshman. We kind of saw that out of his high school film. I think year two is going to be a very good year for Hakeem Williams. At the tight end position, obviously Kyle Morlock, but I mean, 4-star tight end Landon Thomas was a 5-star for most of the cycle. He's another guy that I think could be a contributor for this Florida State offense. And the last position group I want to talk about is this running back room that I think is very exciting. Because you have two kind of running backs at each. You got 4 running backs that you're really excited about. 2 of each that do kind of different things, right? So talk about the more prototypical RB1s that are going to get downhill, get those hard yards. You go and bring in a veteran in Roydell Williams from Alabama who, again, proven contributor at the SEC level. You feel good about that. And then you have a true freshman in Cam Davis that I'm not normally one to kind of bang the table for true freshmen getting a lot of playing time as their first year of college football. I'm probably going to be banging the table for Cam Davis. This is a guy that is a box checker. I think he's mature beyond his years. If you're asking me what true freshman comes in, plays a lot for Florida State year one, I'm probably going with Cam Davis. And then I think outside of that, you have 2 running backs who are just electric in space, right? Lawrence to affiliate, Jalen Lucas coming from Indiana. Lawrence to affiliate, a guy that I am so high on. You talk about a running back that can play, that can make those game-changing plays. 6.7 yards per carry for Lawrence in 2023, 4.3 yards after contact per run. 4.3 yards is more than a lot of people averaged as a running back. He was averaging that after the contact. And then you bring in a guy like Jalen Lucas from Indiana, who again is another guy that I think brings a ton of juice and is kind of another one of those offensive weapons for Mike Norvell, Coach Atkins to look at and say, how do we get him involved? Because he can be a difference maker for this Florida State offense. And I think the way you kind of round this conversation out is you bring in a veteran quarterback with DJU that has a relatively high floor. Like, we know what DJU is. We saw it at Oregon State. We saw it the last year of Clemson. But I think what's exciting is not only does he have a high floor, I think he might have a high ceiling. I think he might be a quarterback that surprises a lot of people in terms of what he can do in 2024. Then you look at the wide receiver room, and the biggest question is you just don't have a lot of returning production, but you kind of dive into the depth chart, the personnel that Florida State has at this wide receiver position heading into 2024. There's a ton of talent on this team. I think it's going to get overlooked because they don't necessarily have the numbers and production to back it up. But I think this unit is kind of a sleeping giant. And again, we kind of named 7, 8, 9 wide receivers that could really be exciting for Florida State. You look at the running back room, I'm very confident that they're going to be able to use those running backs in explosive ways. I'm excited to see what this offense looks like in 2024. And I think there's a long narrative that this is going to be a down year for Florida State after losing as much NFL production as they did. And we'll see about that because I think there's a lot of young talent on this team for a lot of Florida State fans to be excited for. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.